Hello and welcome to my video. Now, what I'm going to do in this one is a bit of water. A lot of people have asked me to paint water, and I don't really know, but I just think that people have trouble with water because they try to paint every ripple, and I'll show you how to not do that, I hope. I'm really hoping the sound holds out on this one. Last weekend I painted a picture and made a video. It would have been, it would have been an hour long. Anyway, I painted the picture and recorded it, put it on my video editor, and there was nothing there. Sound just didn't get through. So I've recovered suitably from that one now to actually do something else, so we'll have a go. Right, so what I'm planning, as much as I plan, is a stream that will come across here, a ridge there, maybe some trees here, and a little bit of sky over there. We'll just see how it goes. So I'm sort of making it up as I go along, really. But I think we'll have a sort of bank up here, possibly a bit more. Let's just put the paint on and see what happens. This, I hope, also will demonstrate to you how not to worry. Don't worry at the beginning of a painting. Got more things to worry about in life than that. So I'm going to put a little bit of a smudge there, just soften it a little bit, and then I'll be working into that in a minute just to make it a little bit more interesting. In fact, I don't think I'm happy with that. I'm going to just change it again and add a bit more darkness, I think. Yeah. This is the first colour I used is my normal sap green, red ochre, a little bit of Payne's grey, but in this one I'm going to use a bit more Payne's grey than I would normally use, so we'll just chuck that in there, and I think we'll come down. So the river's going to be coming, it's going to be disappearing off over there a little bit, not too much. Notice that I'm using the brush very lightly here, picking up some of the texture of the board, and let the paint do the work for you. Just learn to, you have to realise it's paint, it's not a landscape, it's paint that hopefully will look like a landscape. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure it does to me. And I think let's get a little bit of land poking up out of the water there, and coming down here over the back here. Let me think. Yeah, I think we'll have a rise in the ground over there. Not doing much to the clouds at the moment, just establishing my shapes, really. Apologies if my voice sounds a bit strained. It's because it is a bit strained, and I'm not quite sure why. A little bit of fatigue at the moment, and I think it could be because I'm sick to death of 2020. I wish we could all move on to better times. There we go. Right, now let's strengthen that. So this light channel through here, that's going to be water coming around the corner here, right across there, and disappearing off here. Now the effect that will give, I hope it brings us down to the level, almost to the level of the water, I guess to about the height that it would be in your line of vision, as if you were standing almost in the water. And we'll bring it to there, I think. It's quite an effective way of getting people to sort of pull into the picture by widening your foreground. It works that way with paths too, and it just brings you down to the right level. Okay, so we're going to lift the ground up a bit here. In fact, there may even be a tree going right up off the top yet. Don't know, we'll see. So let's have that there, a little bit of ground rising up. And someone asked me recently why there are no people and animals and sheep and stuff like that. Well, been there, done that. Not really interested in doing it anymore. I'll show you some pictures on the screen of other stuff that I've done, like this one and this, and I'll just let you watch a few for a minute, and then I'll come back to painting. So as you can see, I've done many different things in my career, and this just happens to be what I'm into now. Let's have a little bit of grass poking out of the water here. You notice the water is just white at the moment. Don't paint water as blue. It's only blue if the sky's blue, and even then it may be greenish water, in which case it won't look particularly blue. So the clouds in this are going to be quite pale, so I'm going to leave the water pale, and it's going to be sort of stark. That's one of the things about tonalist paintings. They do tend to be quite simple, which could be another reason why I like painting them. I'm basically quite simple. And let's just darken something just here, I think. Okay, right, so we've got water coming down through here. It's obviously coming from over that side somewhere. I might take that to a finer point. That bit of light there, it's ending a bit too quickly. So I mean, I could do that when I start to put the highlights on the water, but in order to put the highlights on the water, I want the board to be reasonably clear of paint. Don't want it to mix too much unless I decide how it's going to mix. Now at the moment, this is looking a bit distant. I want to bring it forward, and that will start to happen in a minute when I start sort of adding a few other colours, and a lot of this will be done with a palette knife. Now I want to show you something that people do, and then I'll erase it. A lot of people will paint water, so I'll just do a little painting down in the corner here, hoping that will appear in the camera. I think it will. They'll paint a bit of water. So here's the little landscape here. They'll put, supposing the light area that I'm leaving below this line here is water, they will do this. They'll do a little spiky thing coming in and then out and then in and then out, like so, and they'll repeat this thing like that, and then they'll do the same the other side. Little one here, little one there, little one here. So you end up with this sort of zigzag thing with these repetitive shapes poking out into the water, as if nature has organized it to be that tidy. So get that right out of your head. I'm going to just obliterate that now and just take some of the paint off. Take a lot of the paint off. Doesn't matter that it's gone a bit green, that's okay, because I'll be putting more opaque paint over that, and much darker paint too. So yeah, don't do that at all. What you need to do is look for random shapes. Just because water, as it comes down, say in a river like this, it finds its way down. It doesn't organize itself to suit us. I know that a lot of what I say sounds like gibberish, but it takes the line of least resistance, meaning you can't sort of say, oh well, look, I've got a bit sticking out here, it's now time for a bit sticking out here. It isn't time for a bit sticking out here. It's time for the odd tiny little bit of something that makes it look less organized. Make sense? Let me know if it doesn't. Of course, I can only answer in this video by typing. This is not live, although I must say I'm at the moment considering doing live sessions on Zoom, which will be, unfortunately I have to do this because we need money, everybody needs it, which will be pay to view. It won't be everything I do, so I mean I want most of my stuff to be accessible to everyone really, but I'm actually thinking of pay to view sessions, which may be on a Saturday, so that people, I mean quite a lot of people work on Saturday I know, but quite a lot of people also don't work on Saturday, so it may work out. And of course I have to allow for America to wake up. This is not a slur on the Americans, it's just that of course I'm in France and my day starts quite a long time before your day, and I've obviously got to wait till about, I suppose, 2 o'clock in the afternoon my time, maybe even a bit later, to allow for most of America to be awake. And of course America being so big, the West Coast I guess is waking up as the East Coast is starting to think about going to sleep, so it's so I need to find a sort of happy balance, and I will find that balance. And first thing is Saturday will probably be the best day for it, maybe even Sunday, I don't know. Okay, so now just looking at my camera here, reasonably pleased. Now what I'm going to do, because the sky, the main focus of the sky here, that's where the excitement will be for the sky. For over here, I'm going to bring this stuff here forward by putting a stonking great tree on it. Hopefully that will bring that forward. So let's just have a little bit of a tree trunk there. That's a tree trunk in its early stages, otherwise known as a trunklet. And I'm going to work on foliage. Now you know when you go out and you're in the woods and you look at something that's just peppered with foliage, and you look and you think, well, how do I paint that? Do I paint the shadows? Do I paint the detail with a tiny little brush? Or which is quite daunting, because you think, oh my god, all those twigs, all those leaves. Well, don't worry about it, because you may notice here that I just sort of dabbed the brush a few times and it's already got that sort of look here that something is complicated and fiddly going on, but actually it isn't. It's all back to this illusion thing, which is what artists do basically. We paint the illusion of a landscape. Unless you're one of those hyper realists which spend a great part of their life painting twigs. I'm not one of them, just haven't got the time, frankly, and good luck to them. Now so here you see there's a clump of foliage starting to appear already, and it really is it's as easy as I'm making it look. People say, oh, you make it look so easy. Well, you know, I mean, after a while it does get easier. It may be that I make it look easy because of repetition. I don't know. I've painted quite a lot in my life, so maybe I guess repetition does come into it. But I seriously think one of the main things is confidence and you know, the go for it attitude. Let's just see what happens. What's the worst that can happen to this painting compared to world current events? Well, actually it's pretty trivial really, it's just a painting, and you can always start again. Now I'm going to bring some dark there. You know, if I touch the brush on there like so, it deposits more paint, it's darker. If I do it quickly, it's not so dark. Now I'm still wondering about how far away this is going to be. Do I want to bring it right down? I mean, I can do that, and I'll show you in a second how. But see this? If I put the brush on like that, so that it gives it time to actually transfer more colour to the surface. Okay. Okay, now, I'm really hoping my voice doesn't give out before I get to the end of this. That would be a bit, well, it wouldn't be embarrassing because I would do a little bit of fiddly editing and you'd never know, but definitely my voice is not performing to the way I'd like it to. Okay, so it sort of looks wet without even painting water. I mean, what could it be? It could be snow, I guess. You could say, oh, well, that's a nice bit of snow there in the water. I beg your pardon, a bit of snow on the ground, but it's not intended to be snow. One thing that I'll do now, which will suddenly turn it to water, and I'll do it really roughly. In fact, I'll thicken that tree a little bit more, just a little bit more there. Now at the moment it's just a dark mark. I can add shapes and textures to that tree if I want. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is that this will stop being snow down here. It's all green snow. When I do something like that. Because suddenly there's a reflection. Very basic, nothing too fancy. And then you've got to look at this shape. If that little shape in there is at that angle, down here it's got to be at that angle. If that tree bends this way and in, it's got to be in and then out there. It has to completely reflect what it is that's above it. So this tree here is going to have a leaning that way, and I'll do that by first of all touching the base of the tree, dropping down as straight as I can below that, okay, and then just try to emulate it. Don't have to do much, it's just a touch. Okay, now what should we do now? I could bring this forward by putting another tree here. I'll think on that for a minute. I'm not going to rush into that one. Most of the sky will be done on a video following this, because at the moment I want to get the basics down, which is basically the basics. Basically, is just to make my permanent drawing. And I'm going to put some shapes in here, like lattice work. Okay, there's a reason for this. Oh, and let's get answering some questions before they're asked. Okay, I'm using liquin, not liquin. No, the other one, alkyd. I always get them muddled up. I'm using alkyd instead of linseed oil. I just, it's not that I suddenly favour alkyd, it's just that I've got quite a lot of it. And it doesn't do much good just sitting in a bottle, so I might as well use it. And then after a few paintings with this, I'll decide whether I'm going to continue with alkyd or go back to linseed oil. Who knows? Okay, so it's looking as though it's going the way I want it to. I'm gonna, oh right, and some people, even though in the title of my videos I say something, what's it, oil painting with Stuart Davies, a lot of people say, is that acrylic? No, it's not, it's oil paint. Can I get this effect with acrylic? I have to answer this on here because I'm typing it so much and people aren't obviously noticing it in replies. So right, you can paint a picture like this with alkyd. You can paint a picture like this with watercolour. You can paint a picture like this with the paints that you use to paint the walls in your house. But it's a different technique. With alkyd, with brain dead some days, with acrylic, it dries quickly. You can use a retarder, and but it's not the same. It does still dry fast, and acrylics, I have nothing against them, but doesn't interest me in the slightest. I've painted with it and experienced it. I don't know, that was fine. That's enough for me. I wanted to move on, and well, not on, but I mean back to oil paint. Not that I ever went off oil paint. It's just that I used to teach painting a few years ago in France, and I was most people wanted to use acrylics, so that's what I did. Didn't enjoy 1 minute of it though, I much prefer oil paint. So there we are, we've got the basics of something coming along here. I think I'll just add a little bit more up here. This is real freestyle stuff. There is, you know, there's no real plan. Leave a few white bits, just make shapes. We are rattling a bit today. Well, I'm not rattling. I'll just fix that and I'll come back to you in a second. Well, I think that's slightly better. We'll see. Okay, so let's just, in other words, what I'm doing here, because the sky will go on in the second part of this video, which will be a separate video, because I want to get this one done to this stage today, and then as soon as it's dry in a few days I'll be finishing it off and uploading the new video much quicker than the gap that there has been recently. I think it's 2 weeks since I uploaded something, which is not enough. Okay, let's have a bit of a tree trunk there, a limb. Let's go out on a limb. So there we are, nice, sort of nice, reasonably bumpy. Don't do straight lines, don't do telegraph poles. Unless it's one of those telegraph pole trees, then feel free. But most trees aren't like that, they've got bumps and twisty turny things going on. So right, a few lumps in there, solid foliage. I'll bring that trunk back in a minute, I'll show you how to do that. Just by adding light. Got a ton of paint right on the top edge of my painting. Okay, so this is the quick way of painting the branches and the gaps between the clumps of foliage, because it's actually one of the hardest things to paint. If you're painting each gap, trust me, it takes hours, and the shapes are quite difficult. This way you're actually putting the dark on the light rather than having to paint the light on the dark. Okay, so I'm going to just let that, I might have something hanging down here. I don't need to paint a trunk, a twig or branch. I can just sort of put the foliage on and then I'll fill in the branch later. So we just have a little shape coming over the top there, like so. Okay, now I'm going to just show you what I mean by the putting the trunk back in there. You can do it in several ways. One way is to use one of these things, a Q-tip. That's a Q-tip. And you could use that, and you could put in some nice twiggy bits like so. Not twiggy bits, they're thin tree trunks that are growing in amongst the big guys. Okay, I think you can see that, just looking in my camera again. Good. That's one way of doing it. Now, the thing about this is an interesting point, I think it is. Well, it's interesting to me, but then again, maybe I need to get out more. But with these, they are stiff, which means they go exactly where you send them. What I like is the randomness you get. I love that word, random. Do you know, I had a comment on YouTube recently, someone said, is random just a random word? Very funny. Seriously, I found that quite amusing. The thing about this is that if I make that into a taper, like so, and then I push it up through the paint, the tip will wander. And it will do things like that. You see, it's almost impossible to keep it absolutely straight. It will do its own wandering on the end. I'll zoom in later, see how that looks. But it gives you that nice, slightly out of control thing that you will get in nature. Let's just push it out here and see what we get. There we are, we've got a few interesting bits coming out there. Right, so that's that. Now, at the moment what's going through my mind, because people seem to like to know what's going through my mind. Of course I can only tell you so much, because there are things that go through my mind that you really don't want to know about, especially before lunch. So I'm going to, what's going through my mind is, what am I going to do here? Am I going to just have that, see at the moment it's quite distant. That's in the distance. This is in the foreground, well, mid-foreground. This is the foreground, that's the midground. Do I want to bring this closer? Don't know. That's the answer to that one. So I'll just see how it goes. What I don't like is that this just almost goes straight. It's just not enough dynamic in there. So I think, what am I going to do? Am I going to put a hill there? If I put a hill there, it will bring the eye in there, and it's like a nice big shape for the eye to fall into, to then follow the river down, or also in reverse. Having the water down here, it's quite a good way to get the eye to meander up the river and then up the top of the mountain. I wonder, what should we do? You see, if I put this as closer, what I could do is I could put fence posts along the top. Like so. Not something I particularly want to do. But you see how that now becomes closer to us. Do I want fence posts? Nah, don't think so. I think we'll lose them. So what I'll do is I'll just smudge the top. And you I hope remember from my other videos, whenever you wipe anything, wipe and look. There may be something in there that is really worth keeping. So go cautiously. As you wipe, look at what you're producing down here on that ridge line. Could be something that's really nice. In fact, I like that better already. So I'm just going to leave that at the moment. And I'm just going to fill in some of this green tone here. There we are. Hope that shows on the video. I think it does. Yes, good. Right, now, oh, a little thing about paper. If you're using paper towels and you're using linseed oil, dispose of them in a metal bin, and at the end of the day, when you finish painting, take the bin out of your house. And by that I don't mean put it in your garage, because that could also cause problems. It's not the fumes from linseed oil, it's the spontaneous combustion that you can get with linseed oil. Linseed oil and rags, and I guess even paper towels, can ignite. So when you finish painting, get it out of your house and put it somewhere where if it does burst into flame, it won't matter. Like down the end of the garden, away from the trees. And that's just a little safety notice there. So the next stage, I'm going to just bring my brush down next to my computer without hopefully getting any paint on my computer. I'm going to get some white and I'm going to start making this look like water. So the white that I'll be using when I get the top off, ouch, is titanium white. Okay, quite a lot of it too. So a generous slug. Palette knife, nice big one. Well, big by my standards anyway. And this is one that's been in my life for, I don't know how long now, 10 or 15 years maybe. And I'm just checking that it's got no dry paint on it. Good. This is dead simple. Don't fret. It's only water we're trying to paint. It's nothing mysterious, depending on your view of water. This is, I think I'm shall I? Yeah, I'm going to zoom in. Right, so this light area here, not quite sure what I'm going to do there yet, which is, could be a good decision, could be a bad decision, don't know yet. One of the things about painting, you may have good decisions and bad decisions, but and they may not be noticeable to start with, but they will eventually. But even then, you know, if you make a mistake, just fix it, just go back and repaint it. Okay, so let's have a bit of water, just do a shoulder check. So I've got water coming down here. Now, because I'm working on wet paint, I'm going to have to clean this quite regularly, otherwise I'll end up with just pale green everywhere, and I don't want that. What I want is white highlights. So I'm putting the paint on one edge of the palette knife, so when I turn it, it's the top edge. Okay, good. And then I'm going to put some white here. One thing about water, if you're doing this sort of painting, it must, and I can't emphasize this strongly enough, it must be horizontal. Landscapes are interesting things regarding verticals and horizontals. When I worked as a magazine designer for a long time, one of the pictures, or type of pictures that we used to put in the magazine were pictures of the countryside and landscapes in general. Sometimes with, well, quite often with buildings in, which of course it's easy to figure out which way up, how horizontal things need to be. But also when you have a landscape and there are no buildings, you can't go by the trees because not all trees are vertical. They lean about all over the place. So what you do is you look at the landscape, you look for water. If there's water, make the water horizontal, the top edge, and that will solve all the other problems, because water, obviously, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, that's what water does. If there isn't, well, what I used to say to some designers that came to work for the company when they were quite new, you'd see pictures in the, you know, on the layout before it went to print that were wonky, and they'd say, well, I don't know how to fix, how do I know which is the, you know, how do I know when it's horizontal? So if there's clouds, what you can do is look for the flat bottomed clouds. If you've got flat bottomed clouds, make them horizontal. Flat bottomed clouds, don't do that, they do that. So anyway, so water, yeah, keep it horizontal, back and forth. It's a bit tricky from the angle I'm doing this because obviously I'm trying to keep out of the way, but it's just back and forth like so, and a certain amount of mixing with the green is absolutely fine because I said it was. No. Because you get that effect, particularly if you've got grassy stuff next to water like this. Some of the submerged grass will look green, shows through the water. Okay, so let's have a little bit of there. Okay, now down here I'm going to put white down first, I think, and then I'm going to add a tiny bit of tone later to that when I do the sky, because the sky and the water are going to echo each other a little bit. So let's have some nice white bits coming into the edge there, like so. So as I put the white here, I've just gone along there in one go, which of course has mixed the white with the green. Now that's absolutely fine, because also the water becomes more shallow here as it approaches the bank. So then I can use a lot of just clean white below that, like so, which I will work on later. I mean, I could just leave it white as the board. I suppose, yeah, why not? It's quite an efficient way of doing it. And I want to break that line there so that the water and the eye doesn't have a barrier. It can go through there and up the painting. So a little bit more white. Just obliterate that barrier. And don't worry about how it's pulling into the paint next to it. The thing is not to overdo it. I've added this big lump of paint here. I'm going to just sort of, it's an ironing motion. It's like you're ironing your shirt. Just back and forth, keeping the horizontals as much as you can. Okay, it does look a bit like snow, doesn't it? But never mind. Just the odd touch there for a little bit of light catching the water at the edge. doesn't go amiss. Okay, so this now is totally contaminated, so this is no good for putting down clean white, obviously. So what I could do with this is I could start using it below this little clump here, like so. When I come to a lump of paint on there that I want to get rid of, I put this on the surface, like so, but I lift it and find the lump and squash it with the heel of the palette knife. So supposing, just to make it a little bit more clear, so hopefully you can see that, there's a lump of paint there. Now I don't particularly want that because it will make it difficult when I get to the second stage of this picture to put a glaze over it, because it would just be lumpy. Now I've got more paint on my hands. This is very unlike me. Normally I keep my hands reasonably clean. Okay, so what I would do for that is just put the palette knife on there, squash the lump and move it. Like so. It looks like an island with trees on it, but of course it's not, it's just sort of grassy stuff, and that'll become more obvious. In fact, I'm going to break up the top edge just a little bit there. Okay, and I'm going to flatten a lump of paint there too. Right, so I've got these tree trunks in the water. Before I get really into a bit more hardcore painting, I'm just going to show you how the water would interact with these tree trunks. I'm just checking the camera. Okay, so it's literally, you've done these shapes, just go back and forth through them like so. Suddenly they are reflecting in the water, and they're also having that nice wobbly shimmering effect which you get from water. A little bit more in there, and a few little twinkles on the edge of the water there. So, right, so I wonder whether that's enough explaining the palette knife technique. Just to go over it before I move on to a bit more brushwork. Back and forth. Imagine you are ironing a shirt, or whatever it is you wear. You may not be a shirt wearer, so you could be ironing your blouse. Anyway, I'm going to try and get a bit more perspective up through here now. So I'm going to lift this line. Can you see? Am I talking to thin air? No, you can actually see. I have to turn around every now and then, look at the camera just to remember what the heck I'm doing here. So I'm going to take a bit more white in there. This is a very important part of the painting. If I had a lot of white water here and nothing much was happening there, you know, sort of tony water, it's got tones in it and shapes and shimmers and stuff like that. This here is an important part of the painting. That is because the eye, I want the eye to go there, and I want there to be lots of contrasts. If there aren't contrasts there, people won't go there. You won't look. You'll look at it, and the whole thing will just be a little bit bland. So I've got to persuade the viewer to go where I want the person to go. So to do that, you add a few little bright spots in there, gradually building it up so that whatever's going on here is going to go behind that little lot there. I don't want this to be quite so far away. Sorry, this bit here. Don't want it to be too far away. So a nice bit of light there. Just to get the eye in there. Now that I'm doing this, I can see that there's absolutely no reason on this planet why that light bit should be there. So I'm going to go back to my original brush, and I'm just going to put some tone in there. And then there we go. I'll be adding texture to this foliage soon. Not a lot, I don't want to do too much. And okay, so the water's down here. This is just a pale grassy colour underneath here. This is not where the water starts. So this is going to come down here. So these bits here and here are not intended to be reflection. The reflection is down there. So I need to break up those shapes there so that these bits come from that point, not from this point. Right, so I'm going to move the camera back so you can see a bit more, and then I'm going to go over to the other side of the painting and try and come to some kind of decision about what I'm going to do there. So what I'm thinking now is that I will do a bit of brushwork on the water. And also some texturing of the undergrowth. Right, so over here I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of texturing. Now, as usual, paper. Scrunch it into a ball. This is not the paper that you would have in your kitchen. This comes on a big giant roll. I'm not sure there's any point in me giving you the manufacturer's name because I'm in France, and if you're in America you probably can't get the same thing there, but it's stronger than the stuff, he said, and it's falling apart, but it's stronger than the stuff you'd use in the kitchen. It's less fluffy. It's not as fluffy. You don't want fluffy paper. You know, the stuff with nice patterns on it and textures. Leave it in the kitchen. This stuff has no printing on it. It has very little texture, and it's actually quite strong. So anyway, make lots and lots of nice bumps and twiddly bits on that. Really sort of go to town on it so that it ends up like that, a mess basically. And you'll be surprised at how quickly you can get interesting textures working without putting a brush on it. Now, this is perfectly acceptable way to paint a picture. The old masters used to do it with rags. And it, you know, think of it this way, it's an alternative brush. You're applying paint to a surface. Who says you have to use this extremely expensive brush or that extremely expensive brush? It doesn't matter, you can use your fingers if you want. It doesn't matter one iota. Just get the effect and enjoy the fact that you can produce a painting which is either for your own satisfaction or for selling in a fraction of the time that you would normally take. Now, I'm doing this for a reason here. Most of what I do is for a reason. Those little sweeps up the landscape there, it's sort of interesting. There is no hidden secret here. Does it look interesting? If it looks interesting, fine. Yummy. Tickety-boo. That's exactly what I want. Give you an idea of why I like to produce stuff so quickly. Early on in my career, I'm sure I've mentioned this in other videos, but I'm sure there are those of you who won't look at all my videos. I was a visualizer. I used to work for advertising agencies, and it was all very high pressure work in those days because there were no computers. It was just you know, a pencil, felt markers, that sort of stuff. In fact, using marker pens was quite new when I started. A lot of designers used to do sketches using, believe it or not, coloured pencils and pastels and stuff. So that's what it was like when I was at college. At the end of my college time, which is very early 70s, suddenly magic markers appeared. And we thought, oh, that's high tech. Wish we'd had that in college. But anyway, my point is, oh, I like that. My point is, we had to do stuff really quickly, like you would be, you're going to work and some suit, advertising executive, we used to call them suits, I'm sure they get called much worse things nowadays, would say, can you do some quick sketches? And you'd say, well, how quick? And they'd say, well, you've got 10 minutes. Can you do this, 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 this? In other words, basically design something, you know, that's going to be printed, or what they wanted was an idea to show the client who was about to appear at any minute, and the visualizer would have to produce a sketch of what this thing could look like. So that's why I do things quickly. Let's try and keep on the subject of painting. So it becomes a habit. You look for quick ways. For instance, I needed to find a very quick way of designing some packaging for a company that's still around, excuse me, called Walida, and they make, still do actually, and they've been going for a long time. They make sort of healthy stuff, like healthy toothpaste, all kinds of, you know, smells, essences, ointments, and yeah, they've been around since dinosaurs were babies. So they wanted some quick designs for their boxes. They wanted to impress the client, and they were coming into the studio where I was working, and they said, can you do some really quick sketches of some simple, natural-looking boxes that will impress Walida? Should I mention the product name? I don't know. Maybe I should. So what I did, and it's one of the few watercolour things I've ever done actually, is I just got some watercolour paper, and I needed to paint grass. I just covered the whole box in grass, just blades of grass everywhere. And to do that, I did what I do on these paintings sometimes, and that is this effect where you screw it into a very tight taper, and I just whipped the hell out of this watercolour paint so it looked like blades of grass. And it does actually work quite well. You just literally flick, like so. I'll zoom in there in a minute and show you what that does. But it basically makes nice random blades of grass. And so you can, I'm always looking for the quick way to do things. There's no point faffing around, I mean, imagine if I painted a video, brain is not in gear today. If I made a video and you were sitting there watching me paint a landscape where every leaf went in, I'm not sure how many people would last more than a couple of minutes, because it would send you to sleep. It's all very well to paint something in high detail and then put up a video showing you doing certain little bits of it. That's different. The bit people want to see on that sort of thing is the finishing off, I think. But to go through a whole video of, I don't know, I think I would lose subscribers probably. Okay, right. So let me see, how long is this video going to be? Don't want to go on too long. Okay, so I'm going to put, for next time, I'm going to put some textures down here in the water. I'm going to break that up. What I don't want, you see, is sausages in the water. I'm going to break that down to a more interesting shape. I'll just leave it like that for now. And a few green ripples down here, right into the foreground. Literally very simple shapes. Looking up here, obviously something up there may reflect down here, so I'll just put a few dark areas there, not being too precise. No point. And a few little bits there. There we are. Okay, let's have a look in the camera. What do I like? What don't I like? Right, I've seen something I don't like. It may seem trivial, but it all adds up in the end. I don't like this weird shape with that bit scooping up there. It's a bit bizarre actually. So I'm going to swoop it the other way. I'm going to put something there so. There we are. Now, here I think I'm going to make this stronger and actually let it cut across so that we have this serpentine shape going through there. Still haven't made a final decision about this area here. What do I want? Do I want fields disappearing into trees? Do I? This is a question I ask myself almost every day. Do I want fields? It's never what I want for breakfast. It's always, do I want fields? Okay, back to normality. I'm going to put a hint of a hill there. Now it looks really strong at the moment and dark. That's okay. When you do something like this, it doesn't mean to say that's set in stone. So let's have a little bit of a hill there. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something here similar to what I did in my illusion of detail video, which is going to be hitting 2 million views very soon. And that is, I'm just going to put some hills. So I'm going to keep the fields, the light bits here. Definitely, yes. Looking at it, I've come to an executive decision there. I'm going to intensify the light a little bit there, just to add a bit of sparkle. You may not see that as sparkle, but I do. Okay, so above that I'm going to darken it a little bit and just put some texture in, but up here I'm going to just do some, let's just go for the effect I got in that video, and that is just to make an interesting skyline that comes down to there. Yeah, a little bit of Tolkien on the horizon. Why not? And a little tree clump there as a stopper, just to stop the eye going out the picture, hopefully. Anyway, I'm sure it doesn't always work. So for the sky, what should we do? Maybe I will leave it for the next part of the video. I think I will, actually. Give you something to look forward to. And in the foreground now, with a big piece of paper that's just the flat side of the paper, I'm just going to do a little bit of smudgery down here. And that, those shapes in there will help make the water in the next video. Looking reasonably wet. One last thing before I get off your screen, if you're still here, is just using this dark sludgy colour, same one that's on the brush. I'm going to add foliage ready so that when it's dry and I put the sky on, I can then wipe back to reveal the leaves and the foliage that I've put on there. So again, the quick method, nice big bit of paper. And as I'm doing this, I'll just make a couple of comments about a few things. Lots of people ask me about the music that I use. There are two bits of music. One is called The Long Road Ahead, and the other one is called, it's a funny name actually, Shoulder Closures. And I'll put links to them in the info box below. I just like them. I'm not sort of, I don't listen to this music all the time. I'm just trying to get a bit of a sound so that when you watch one of my videos you think, oh, that's that strange guy in France again, because I recognise the music. A little bit of branding, I suppose. Yeah, branding. And so there we are. There's a few leaves that will just be sitting there, drying off. A little bit of texture to save me spending hours on it with a little brush, because I don't want to. There we are. That's probably enough for now. and I'll see you soon. Now, before I go, a couple of things. I always have to say this at the end. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learnt something. If you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon. That will send you a message when I put up another video. And if you want to be a patron, I have a Patreon page. What else? Yeah, follow me on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Links are all below. If you're interested in coming here for lessons, not much is happening. Well, nothing's happening the rest of this year. So who knows what will happen next year. I've got lots of people inquiring about next year, but of course I can't give a definitive answer because I don't think anyone, I don't think anyone really knows what the situation will be next year, because nobody knows. There we are. Okay, so oh yeah, I'm just going to these are little things that I do like this, you know, for next time. Just the odd little bit of highlight in the landscape, just like that through that. Sort of nice bunch of something pale over there. Don't know what it is, but I'm sure it'll be something one day. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye for now.